Hello, dear friends. Welcome to Kardec Radio, where we're here to nourish our souls. I'm Norah, the host of this program, Thoughts by Joanna de Angelis through Divaldo Franco. This is the book. We have a bookmark here so we can have the context of how the size of the book, but my gosh, it is amazing. Again, we're going through the first section of the book, which is all about different ways to experience love, manifest it, embrace it, and live it and practice it, and so much more. Most importantly, to experience it, right, dear friends? So, let us get started. And this is a beautiful passage today. Seeing love as a beautiful reaction in our lives. So the word catalyst, love is a catalyst. I remember seeing this when I was younger, not knowing what it was. It was such a high vocabulary word. And I think I really, really enjoyed it for that. But I also saw it in a science book, and it was so incredible to see this. And it's a captivating word. It's mysterious, and then the spelling of it and all of that. So it's a very fun and engaging word. And so we are going to really see how love as a catalyst works in our favor today, according to Joanna, through Divaldo, and the mentors. So here we go. Love is a catalyst for the good that spreads over the earth. Without it, nature would be sterile, and beauty everywhere would be reduced to disappointment and degradation. So once again, this beautiful idea of love being a catalyst. You know, the definition of a catalyst is something that moves, shakes something into something else, like it precipitates it. So it's so beautiful. I wanted to share that this was the actual diagram where I truly felt the impact of this word. And we have two figures, and not to disrespect the science or anything, but just to kind of get a and I'm not a scientist either, friends, but a quick glance at how even in science, this catalyst is so vital for things. So imagine in real life, that's the premise of this analogy. So in figure 8, here we have, right, the reactant, and we have the product, and we have this curve. We also have this activation energy. So activation energy is kind of going up, and here we see the reacting goes through the curve and down. But then we come to diagram B. Same thing, we have the reactant and we have the product. And as the activation energy is still going, look at the level of the activation energy here. It's a lot smaller, right? This enzyme, this catalyst enzyme comes in and helps this reaction, right? Move the rate faster for that product. And what's so beautiful about these enzymes or these catalytic reactions is that they are not going to come out into the product. They're not going to go in there and have any form of reaction. Their beautiful purpose really is to help speed the rates of these reactions, or else things wouldn't be, balancing out, for instance, in our bodies, right? In this sense, in this biochemical sense of understanding the beauty of what a catalytic reaction is and what it does. So looking at this respectfully, and to use it as an analogy now in what Joanna is trying to help us understand, our lives, it's all energy. We know that. Emmanuel, Andre Luis, they share that information with us, right? Andre Luis is our scientist in the spiritist sense, and we have loads of support in his books about this. So thinking of it as this sense, it makes a clear picture for us. Imagine us, the first point, elevating ourselves to seeing how love as a reaction, as a catalyst, as energy, and how that is around us. Doesn't it make us more aware of the choices that we need to make, of what we let in and how we let it in. And we know, as we see it here, the whole idea is, let's lower that activation energy so that reaction, that product can come out, right? We know we have a lot of exterior forces, pushing at us sometimes. Life can be full of its own challenges, but we are loved. That's basically what Joanna is saying, guys. We have this love catalyst. Let it be in your lives, and you will see the results of it, like all the beauty of it. But then she states something really interesting, which says, if without love, nature would be sterile, the beauty around us, it would be reduced, right? So it's not saying that the world would be, that is ugly, or that the world's going to end, but rather it's kind of telling us, what Joanna is saying to us, hey, this is actually, it's an inner state. This is this psychological, spiritual well-being, because we know that thought is life. And so if we know there's all these energy fields around us, right, and we have love as a catalyst coming in like an enzyme and pushing these beautiful reactions to create more beautiful products of love, right? That's the main, the main goal here is we want that love to move on into progress. Well, what happens if we don't? We're not going to go into the whole story of this, friends, but in the book The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz, chapter 3, The Man Who Didn't Believe in Love. This book is not a spiritist per se, but it's very straightforward, and it's a beautiful book. Highly recommend. As an enrichment on the side, right, to our spiritist books. And in this story, the man simply stated, love doesn't exist. He was so adamant about it that he even said, actually, love is like a drug addiction. So when you don't have it, you have all those withdrawal symptoms. And so it's like you need it all the time, and it controls your life. And it's this fear-based lifestyle. At the end of the day, he says, and these are his conclusions, was that even in a relationship that worked, one person was in control and the other one made a choice to become submissive to this love, because again, it's like an addiction. So he has this very, quote unquote, successful life on the outside, meaning he got an education, he had a job, and he felt he was whole and complete with the idea that love doesn't exist. So he goes on like this, and then he's walking and he sees this lady crying on a bench. Long story short, she says, hey, I don't believe in love. Love doesn't exist. And so he's intrigued, like, what? There's someone else that thinks just like me. So the irony is that they build a beautiful friendship out of this belief that love doesn't exist. But what was happening in this, in this journey of these two souls, right, was that in the story, Don Miguel shares that he started to second guess himself. He's like, well, maybe love does exist, and I was just seeing it from a different way, right? So he's talking with his beloved friend there, and he says, experiencing what you and I are having, I'm starting to think that love does exist. And so she kind of looks over and says, you too? I was thinking the same thing. I just didn't want to tell you because you didn't believe it. And so through that, they come into an actual union, a relationship, they move in together. And, Ruiz says that at first everything was great, everything was wonderful. They had a lot of boundaries and respect. There's no envy, no jealousy, none of this stuff, because they said, well, we're living together and our love is going to be different. Well, the man becomes so ecstatic and in bliss with this emotion that he's looking at the sky and at the stars, and he connects to one of them. And the star comes down and lands on his hand, and he just feels overjoyed with this. So naturally, he goes and shares that with his partner, says, hey, look, this is happiness. This is a love. And that beautiful star hands it over to her. What ends up happening? when she held his experience with that star on her hands, it wasn't the same thing, and she drops it, and when it falls on the floor, it shatters to pieces. And so the man goes back to his old way, saying, love doesn't exist, right? Because that everything that he felt was shattered. So two things for us to really see. Number one would be the lifestyle, right? When this man in his way changed his way of seeing love and we believed in it, um and let love be that catalyst, we can see how he lived his life differently. He found someone for himself, right? And this could be in our relationships of different kinds when we allow that love. But the situation with him though was that, again, while he was in this relationship, he didn't have this complete rewiring of his beliefs, right? And so because he still felt that love was exterior connection of himself, he hadn't internalized it yet, right? Well, when he hands over the star, the woman could not make sense of that because that was for his journey. And so it's the same thing. We, each of us, have our own understanding of love. But in that sense, friends, it is still a process that needs to be internalized, that needs to be grown from the inside out. So when things do happen, we don't allow those energetic forces to really change the trajectory, right, of that energy, of that reaction, like we saw with the analogy in this book. In this bunch of stories from Chico Xavier by Carlos Bacelli, and it's not in English, but chapter 1 has this beautiful story that the Chico goes to this prison, and that they were having a service, and he shares a prayer, and he was kind of in shock because, well, they're in prison, and the prayer was actually for everyone. And that's the thing, sometimes when we're not allowing this divine love come permeate through our lives and all these beautiful reactions to create fruitful products, right? By the fruit you will recognize them, Jesus' words. Well, then we're all imprisoned. But it doesn't have to be a place to stay stuck. As we saw in the story with Don Miguel Ruiz, we have the choice too to move our lives, to make those choices that do this. So in the Spiritist perspective now, there's nothing more powerful than prayer. And this prayer is actually by Maria Dolores. And we're going to read a couple of parts here, friends, to finish off. Jesus, Master and Lord, all of us, your apprentices, linked to the world, we're imprisoned somehow in the challenges that take us forward, according to your plans, in the ignored love with which you love us. So many times, Jesus, we're held up in cruel memories, the times gone by. So we have it here. We already loved. We're ignoring it, but we are loved, and we have to meet up to that, right? To pray that we are set free. I'm going to read this ending because it's very profound. That is why, Lord, may we, prisoners of 1,000 rules, to the sublime shackles that vibrate at work, that as long as in silence you transform us, here we are, begging you in prayer, make us more together as humankind in the cultivation of the good which assists and forgives, and help us, Master, to understand, even when the lesson does not please us, that at least one key in our life guards our liberating power, the key of humility that you gave us, which may lead us to the practice of love. That humility is the key so that it begins to, right, send out more of that beautiful energy of love, and love becomes our catalyst. And then our life, that emotional, spiritual, psychological well-being, right, that mental aspect, all plus our physical altogether becomes, just makes the life a little easier to navigate, right, friends? Because we know we're gonna have situations, but gosh, Doesn't it help to know that? So the practice for us this coming week is to be aware of those reactions, right? To see how love is a catalyst in our life and how we can join forces as well as a collective to create more of these uh, products of love and forgiveness and compassion and peace and all the beauty that there is, so we can start to elevate really the, the energies and the direction as we are moving on into our progress. Dear friends, that is today's lesson. Until next week, same place, same time, and please let us stay safe and not forget that we are loved. God bless you. Bye bye.